to today's Trainer Education webcast, Taking the Lead, 5 Things Every Supervisor Needs to Know, hosted by HRDQ and presented by Dr. Annette Cremo. Today's webcast will last approximately an hour, and please stay tuned at the conclusion of the broadcast for an exclusive offer. Before we begin, note that there is a question and answer button located in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You can use this button all throughout the webcast to submit any questions that you have. Annette will answer questions as time allows at the end. My name is Sarah Montgomery, and I will moderate today's webcast. I'm in business development for HRDQ, a publisher of research-based training solutions that improve the performance of individuals, teams, and organizations. Today's presenter is Dr. Annette Cremo, a seasoned training professional with over 15 years of experience in education, organization development, and human resources. She holds an MED in Training and Development from Penn State University. Annette received her PhD in Psychoeducational Process from Temple University, and her doctoral research examined the active learning process for work teams and suggested ways to optimize content retention. Some of Annette's clients include Ernst & Young, GlaxoSmithKline, Tyco, Hershey Foods, Hilton Hotels, Ingersoll Rand, PPL, Washington, D.C. Department of Corrections, Big Lots, and Sara Lee, just to name a few. She recently completed Supervisory, Leadership, and Diversity Instructional Design and Training for the PA Workforce Investment Board. Annette is also an adjunct university instructor leading courses in training and presentation skills at Pennsylvania State University and the University of Scranton. Thank you so much for joining us today, Annette.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome to all of you. It's great to have you here with us today. And this is a topic that I absolutely love. I've loved it for many years because it's so interesting to see my supervisors grow and develop and really take the information. They're like sponges. Take this information and actually use it. So what we're going to do, I want to show you what we're going to be doing today in our webinar. If you go to the next slide, Sarah. Our agenda today is we're going to look at, first of all, the 5 key supervisory skills. And these are, you're probably saying there's many skills that supervisors need. And yes, there are. And you'll see that these are sort of skill areas with some sub-skills that are attached to them. So we'll look at the 5 skill areas and look at a proven supervisory model. Through our research, we came up with a model that looks at how supervision is an integral part of achieving the organization's goal. Then we're going to identify supervisory strengths and weaknesses, and you'll have an opportunity to do that and to use the assessment that we use for this program by using the situation and looking at the best application or best action for it. And to do this, what we're basing it on is an assessment that we've developed. It's called the Supervisory Skills Questionnaire, and this questionnaire has 30 scenarios with multiple choice answers, and each answer is given a point value. So when the supervisor reads the scenario, they'll choose one of the answers that they think are the best, and after that we'll look at each one of these scenarios and look at which is the best answer and why, and link it to one of these 5 skills that we have. I think the beauty of this assessment is that the other part of this, their employees can also take the same assessment and assess their supervisor. So you're going to see, if I'm a supervisor, I may think I'm doing wonderful at all these skill areas, but my employees may see a gap in one or the other. So, and give us an opportunity to start that dialogue. We're going to look then at the supervisory do's and don'ts, give some suggestions for skill improvement, and then at the end do some questions and answers. But right now I want to put on my educator hat and just share with you something that I do in all my supervisory sessions when I teach supervisors. And I do this so I can get buy-in for why they need to listen to this. And what I do is ask them, I start my seminars the same way all the time, ask them to think about the greatest supervisor that they've ever encountered, one that made a difference to them, one that made a difference to their organization. Have them work in groups to come up with a list of attributes of this supervisor. And then I have them share them with me, and we look at the list and we make some assumptions about it. And it becomes quite evident when you see what they came up with. So what I'm going to do, ask you, it's basically the same question. You've just been given an award for excellence in supervision in the year 2010. The award was created and voted on by your employees. What makes excellence in supervision, in your opinion, is it technical expertise, or is it excellence in your relationships? All right, let's go now to our polls. And if you take a few moments to vote, do you think technical expertise, or is it excellence in relationships? All right, I think we got most of the votes in. All right, Sarah, if you could show us the results. It is excellence in relationships. And it's interesting, 98%, 2% says technical expertise. And when you look at things that the supervisors come up with in the sessions, you're going to get the same amount, sort of the same amount of people saying relationship things like communication, conflict, they know how to deal, they know how to negotiate, they know how to collaborate. And a few people will say they know their job well. So it shows me that it's most meaningful to the people that they supervise that relationships is what it's all about, getting the work done through people, and that's what supervision is all about. If you look at the role of the supervisor and how it has changed in the years, in the last decades, it has gone from command and control to that, in my opinion, of a nurturer. Great supervisors have vision. They know where they're going. They know where their organization are going, and they get their work done through people. In the last years, it was hard to grasp exactly what a good supervisor did, and because of the rapidity, how quickly organizations change and the shifting role of the supervisor. What made a good supervisor 20 years ago and even 10 years ago is not necessarily what makes a good supervisor today. Yet when I ask my groups about, in your organization, how are supervisors chosen, many still say because they're good at the job. And as you all know, it's a whole different skill set when you go from the technical expertise to now getting the work done to people, because now it's all about relationships. Well, if you look at the research that's out there, and this is research from Friedman, Pink, Blanchard, Buckingham, Cotter even has something in there that says there are 5 things that are impacting organizations, and these are the global influences like the economy, the environment, the government, technology, demographics, all have an impact on organizations, and it puts supervisors in a unique position. They are now charged with creating an environment in which their employees can achieve a superior performance. And in an era that we have right now of so many government regulations, and those of you who are in healthcare know what I'm talking about, the #1 regulated industry out there, we have technology that is changing at such a rapid rate. I have a son that's in college now learning about technology, and interesting fact that by the time he's a sophomore now, by the time he becomes a senior, what he learned as a freshman is going to be outdated. So it's changing. The rate of change is just astronomical. And I read Cotter and see what he says about change, that we're going from an era of going 5, 10 miles an hour to one that is now going 120 miles an hour. And it's not going to stop. We have a diverse workforce. We have better educated employees. And we're now moving in teams and getting work done through teams. Years ago, my supervisor would say, you tell the employees to leave your brains at the door, come in, and I'll tell you what to do. No longer is it that way. It's a flatter organization. We want more collaboration. We want to resolve conflict. We want to get information from the employees. And it's all about relationships, and it's all about getting the work done that the organization needs to get done. Well, the skills that are required to operate effectively in environments like this are substantially different from those in the past. Today, we balance the goals of the organization with the needs of the work group. So it's this constant turning over of how do I get where my organization needs to go, and how do I get the people to get that done. Well, your job in developing great supervisors, you can do this by a couple things. By, first of all, knowing what they do well, have supervisors identify what they themselves do well, and knowing how they need to be developed as a leader, as a supervisor in the organization, and then look at where are the performance gaps and develop individual development plans to help them achieve their goals or fix those gaps. Now, the other thing that I like to put in here, too, is I think your job as an educator is to help them, to coach them along in their developmental process. Many times in organizations, we have these wonderful programs. We teach them about the elements of great supervision. We teach them about communication, conflict resolution, what it takes to be a great supervisor. The program's over. We never hear anything about it. We never know what's going on. So I think our role as educators is to make sure that it continues and that there is some sort of a benefit to my supervisors and in turn to the organization. Well, based on this, I want to show you a model that we use in supervisory skills to look at. It's a supervisory skills model, and this is what we're going to be talking about today and the skills that are associated with it. And you'll see from this model, we take direction from the organization. The organization has goals, it has a mission, it has a vision, it knows where it's going, and the supervisor is the one responsible for helping the organization achieve that mission. They are sort of the middleman, middlewoman that's there, and they do this to their work group, through their work group by guiding the work, organizing the work, developing their staff, managing performance, and managing relationships in the organization between teams and between departments there. And again, the primary role of the manager or the supervisor is the link between upper management or the organization itself and the employees. What I want to do now is to go through each one of these different skill sets or skill areas and identify what it is. We're going to talk about a situation or a scenario, have you vote on which one you think is the best answer, talk about why it is the best answer, and look at the do's and don'ts, and then lastly look at, if you are deficient in that area, what are some things you can do in order to get better at it. So if you take it to the next slide, Sarah, I want to read the scenario. All right, do you want to take it to the next one, please? I'm sorry, guiding the work is our first one. Sorry about that. And guiding the work, you want to go back one if you can do that. It's knowing the strategic direction of the organization and aligning it with the goals of your department. So guiding the work is the first thing on there, and knowing the strategic, where's the organization going, and getting your department or your team to be in alignment with the organization's goals. And you have to know what it takes to get there. All right, so that is guiding the work. Thanks, Sarah. All right, on the next slide then, this is our scenario we're going to be working with here, situation. A project your group received about 3 weeks ago seems stalled, even though your group knows it's important to your best customer. You decide to have a talk with your group about what the problem is. How would you start the discussion? Do you A, tell your group you need to know what's going on with the project and tell them you'll accept whatever changes that they suggest, so they're taking charge. B, start by stating clearly that this project must be completed, then discuss their expectations for completion as well as your expectations for completion. Or C, tell the group the project is now top priority and give them a completion date. All right, I'm going to take it over to the polls right now. I'm going to have you vote on what you think the correct answer is. All right, you remember you're voting on how would you start the discussion on the stalled project. All right, I think the voting is slowing down. Sarah, if you want to show us what the answers they came up with. All right, 81% of you said state clearly that the project was finished and discuss expectations, yours and theirs. 13% of you said tell the group you need the status and accept their changes as they suggest. And 6 of you say tell the group the project is top priority, give them a completion date. Let's look at what the best answer is in this case. Best answer in this case is B. Start by stating clearly that the project must be completed, and then sit down with them. And again, you're going to see the relationship in here and discuss your expectations and their expectations for completion. And I think start a project plan based on that. That one gets 2 points. The one that gets 1 point is tell the group that it is top priority and give them a completion date. They do this because they said it's a good answer, it's an okay answer, but the thing with this is they don't get buy-in by the rest of the group. There's no group involvement. And A is the least preferred answer there, and that is you have to remember that they're in charge, that you're in charge, and while their suggestions may be good, if you ever have to change it, it makes it a little bit harder. So that is the rationale for that. B is correct. Why? Because you need to state your expectations clearly from the start, and it involves discussion and team commitment in answer number B. All right. In guiding the work, some do's and don'ts for you. In guiding the work, we need to understand the needs of the organization and plan your group's work effectively to meet those needs. In doing things, you want to support the organization goals, know what they are, make sure that you have that clear dialogue with your management to know where your organization is headed. I think there's nothing sadder to me than to work with my supervisors and ask them, do you know what the mission is? Do you know the vision? Do you know the strategic plan of the organization? And for them to say, I don't know. And I think it's their responsibility, if they don't know, to ask. Get employees involved in the planning process. Supervisors, you don't know all the answers, so get them involved. Ask them questions. Ask them how they can contribute to it. Ask them how they can help the organization achieve its missions. Act decisively. Make plans with specific progress review dates, sort of like a project plan. Let them know who, what, when, where, why, and how. The things you don't want to do is ever tell employees, don't ever tell your employees that you disagree with top management or their positions. Like, for example, I don't really agree with the idea, but we're going to do it anyway. Not good at all, because your employees watch you as a supervisor and everything you do. They watch you when you get out of the car in the morning. They watch you pick up the paper in the parking lot. They watch if you're in a good mood, and they take their lead from it. And if you got a limp, they got a meal. Consistently prepared detailed plans do not consistently prepare plans without consulting your employees. They are where the rubber meets the road, and I think we have to respect that and get their ideas and put those ideas into an implementation plan. Don't put off making decisions until you're sure that they're perfect. It could be forever. Sometimes you have to take a risk and show your employees that it's okay to make a mistake and you're not afraid to do that. And in essence, that conflict is okay, disagreement is okay. And the last, don't fail to assign responsibility for tasks. Well, if you look at some of Buckingham's work, what he says is that people need to know what's expected for them, and they need to know what's expected of them, how it needs to be done. And you have to tell them what it is. And let them be responsible, because employees are there to do that great job. If you did score low in this area, some things you may want to work with as a supervisor are areas in skill improvement. Make it clear to your work group that you support the organization's goals. Let them know what it is. Let them know that you are going to be there for them. Provide direction in unfamiliar areas. Balance asking information by acting decisively. Plan in advance. Before you present a project to anyone in the organization or any of your employees, make sure you have thought it out. Make sure you know who, what, when, where, why, and how it's going to be done. Create specific and realistic plans and gain commitment from your group by actively involving your work group. All right, let's go on to the next one now, and that is organizing your work. Organizing your work is getting the right people, the right equipment, the right resources aligned to meet the goals of your organization. It's difficult because of the shifting priorities. It's difficult because we know there's one constant in the organization, and that is going to change. And no sooner you get one thing done, then something else comes down the pike and you have to change. And it does also require, in organizing the work, that if you're a supervisor, excuse me, that you are constantly reorganizing things to make it work. Let's go on now to the next slide to look at the situation. Excuse me. You have appointed one of your people as a leader for a project, but it's clear that another employee is really seen as the leader by the group. The project is progressing well, but it worries you that the leadership is not where you want it to be. What would you do? Would you, A, make it clear to the group who the leader is and who you support, don't tolerate other sources of leadership? B, appoint the leader who has the group support as a formal project leader? Or C, don't interfere. All right, let's take it to the polls right now to see what would you do. You have an informal leader that is emerging. All right, so we have about 75% of the vote. Okay, let's stop it, Sarah, and see what we came up with here. All right. Number one answer, don't interfere. Tied for second place almost, or appoint the leader who has group support as a formal leader. All right, so that would be that informal leader, appoint that person. Or you can make it clear who the leader is and don't tolerate other leadership. The answer, the best answer that we came up with is C, don't interfere. Informal leadership in most cases is not harmful at all. The reason, the rationale for the other ones, B scores 1 point if you scored that one. Acknowledging the formal leader is okay, but how do you know if it's a good fit for the leadership that you expect from the project? Right. The other one, the first one, is make it clear that the group, who the group's leader is and that you support, you don't support other sources of leadership. It may lead to a little bit of, I don't know, backlash sometimes by employees So the best thing for you to do as a supervisor is don't interfere. In organizing the work, some do's and don'ts that we have here. Set schedules to meet the organization's goal. Again, here what we're doing is aligning the people, resources, whatever you have to accomplish the work goals. Use other people's expertise to organize when necessary. Keep track of what's going on and inform the organization and the information in the organization. And involve others if you have to reorganize. Don't blindside anybody. You don't want to be blindsided as a supervisor, so it's only fair to your employees that you let them know what's going on. Things you don't want to do is don't accept work change without question. Always ask why. How does it fit in? Keep your eye on the end. How does it fit into the mission? How does it fit into the division? How does it fit into the strategic plan of the organization? Don't show favoritism or fail to assign unpleasant tasks. We all do this. Sometimes my supervisors will tell me they want to be liked. They don't want to cause any kind of problems within the work group, so they don't. Sometimes they'll even do unpleasant tasks themselves or not give them to anybody else. Go ahead and assign responsibility. Another don't is don't fail to assign responsibility for necessary tasks. Don't do it yourself. Have other people do it. That's a way to help them grow as well. And don't try to have complete knowledge of all aspects of the work. Remember that you hired your employees because they can do their job. Respect that. Get the information from them. Share it in group meetings and have them have some input into how you're going to get it done. All right, on the next page then, some skill improvement ideas for you. Handle shifting priorities. You realize that you are operating in constant white water. It's not going to change. Quickly investigate unforeseen problems and work to solve them. Encourage your employees to let you know when they see some problems so you can work through them. And in doing, consult employees to gain complete knowledge of the work. Walk around, ask them what's going on, how they're doing with it. Have a lot of team meetings too to make sure you have that good understanding of it. Follow rules, regulations, and guidelines of the organization. Also, maybe any governmental rules that may be in there. And lastly, accommodate the needs of your work group when they're not in direct conflict with your organization's needs. Interesting one with this one. I see this happen with my Gen X and Gen Ys. They're constantly saying, why can't we do it this way? Let's try it another way. And when you look at the composition of the leadership and management in an organization, statistically, you see most of them are your baby boomers. So we're operating in a baby boomer world of policies and procedures, and we have to do it this way, a certain way. And it's sort of stepping out of our comfort zone to take a risk and doing something a little bit different. And you know what? Listen to them because they are brilliant and they're a great source of information for you and for your organization. All right. Let's go now on to developing your staff. Developing your staff is when you are growing people to meet their full potential. It is respecting this goodness of fit that people have. It means you need to know people's individual strengths, their goals, who the person is, their abilities, any kind of communication styles they have, acknowledge excellence, address gaps. Know what your people come into the organization with. Know what's going, maybe this informal organization that exists in there. Know what's going on in there and link that into developing your staff. All right, let's look at now the situation in developing your staff. You believe that one of the people you supervise has the potential to be promoted, but that person lacks confidence in his or her abilities. So you have a person who is great, you think they're going to be great, but they're not confident at all. How would you build his or her confidence? Would you, A, give the employee a challenging assignment that you are sure that he or she can complete with some effort, so you're stretching them a little bit. B, give the employee an easy assignment and then praise him or her when the assignment is completed. So you're not stretching them, but you know you're setting them up for a win. Or C, praise the employee publicly each time he or she completes any assignment. All right, let's go to our polls now, and if you would vote on that, you are, again, developing someone or helping them develop their confidence. What would you do? All right, I see answers are still coming in there. Interesting, this is a lot clearer than the other one. All right, I think we'll close it now, Sarah, if you want to go and let's look at what the answers are. All right, first one, 82%. That's why I said it's a lot clearer this time. Give the person a challenge and excitement you're sure that they complete, so you're stretching them a little bit, and that is the correct answer. Give an employee an easy assignment, 7%, and 11% of you said that to praise the employee publicly each time that he or she completes the assignment. Let's see now what the best answer is. And in this case, absolutely the best answer is give the employee a challenging assignment. So you know your employee, you know what they're capable of, you know that they can stretch themselves, and they're going to do it with some effort. And you do this because it creates more engagement with them. There's more buy-in to what they're doing. They feel proud of what they've done. It yields greater self-esteem and greater on the completion of this. The reason that B is not the correct answer, although B does get 1 point, give the employee an easy assignment and then praise them, there's no gain right there. I mean, you're praising the person, and that's good. They feel good about it, but it's sometimes too easy. The last one got 0 points. It's what you're doing is really what are you rewarding them for? How are you going to know that you are catching them if they're going to do anything right, or are you going to catch them when they do that right thing? So it leaves too much to chance with that one. With A, you're really setting that employee up to build their confidence. Let's now look at the do's and don'ts for developing your staff. Increase the skill level of each employee by learning his or her strengths and assigning a task according to the developmental need. Now, you can learn about their strengths by doing assessments. You can learn about their strengths by asking them. You learn about their strengths by, what's my style, another instrument that is great in understanding what people are really good at. Here's some things you can do. Delegate the work that develops your skills, your employees' skills. Don't be afraid to delegate. Many supervisors, that's another one of the bigger problem areas, that they think that the supervisors are the ones who, they know how to do the job, they know how to do it right, and they don't want to delegate. They take on too much themselves. But if you're going to grow yourself as a supervisor, you need to delegate to others. And if they don't know how to do that job, teach them how to do that job. And you're growing them. You will not be out of a job, believe me. There's a lot to go around. Next thing to do is to get to know your employees on an individual basis. Get to know what they like. Get to know their families. Get to know what their goals are. Where do they want to go in the organization? What are their dreams? What are their aspirations? And this requires that good communication and just building their rapport there. Do keep employees informed about the status of their requests. One thing that I hear from employees, even if they have a problem or they have a concern or if they have a great idea that they've given their supervisor, they'll tell me that, I told my supervisor about this, but they never got back to me. And that really frustrates them because they're proud of their idea. They're proud that they went to their supervisor and let them know about it. So you need to get back to them and let them know the status of their request. Even if it is, you know what, we can't do it at this time, at least they know that you've heard what they said, you've respected what they said, and you've taken it farther, and you're getting back to them. And the last do is make sure your expectation for results are clear when you delegate tasks. So you want to make sure by good communication that the individual knows exactly what's expected from them. And maybe ask the question, I want to make sure you understood what I just said. Can you tell me what you heard me say? So you know that it's clear. Some don'ts. Don't complete the task yourself because they require effort to teach others. It may take time, but you are teaching them a skill that will last a lifetime. Invest your time in it. Don't treat employees as a group rather than as individuals. Don't forget to tell employees about the status of their request. That goes back to one of my do's. And then lastly, don't delegate to only people you already know have the skills for the task. Again, yeah, it's easier to do it that way, but are you growing? Are you nurturing? Are you developing your employees if you don't delegate to those who you know need to stretch a little bit? So make sure you do that. All right, so if you did score low in that area in developing your staff, some things you need to do, take the time to delegate. Delegate work that develops employee skills. So in essence, here you have to know what your employees need development at and develop those skills. And does not require your formal authority. So delegate to those employees and let them know that you do have the authority to complete the task or to complete the job, do whatever it takes. And don't micromanage. Don't keep checking in to make sure that they're doing it right. Delegate to employees who need development and are willing to be developed. There's a difference there. Some people don't want to do it, and if they don't want to do it, there's other action that we're going to take when you're looking at their performance gaps. So we'll talk about that in one of the next sessions there. and then provide clear expectations and follow up regularly. Let people know what's expected of them. Let them know how they're doing, if they're doing well, or if they need to change what they're doing. And lastly, set challenging and realistic goals for your work group. All right, let's go on to the next one, and that is managing performance. This, when I do my supervisory skills training, is probably the most difficult area for supervisors. They're afraid sometimes to approach their employees about any kind of performance gaps that they have. But yet if they're going to achieve the goals of the organization, help them achieve their mission, their vision, their strategic plan, they've got to address performance gaps. It's your job to get the work done through people. Watch, look, and listen for ways to help people meet performance objectives. Document what you see. There is no greater thing, no better thing that you can do as a supervisor than document, document, document. When you go and talk to people about their performance, you're going to need specifics. You're going to need specific times, dates, and behaviors, observations that you have made. You don't want to give words that people don't understand, like you didn't do it right. What does that mean? You have a bad attitude. What does that mean? Make sure you have specific instances, dates, times, and behaviors that you see. We can change a behavior. But sometimes when we say things like you have a bad attitude, it is a direct assault on the person, and it shuts the individual down. Learn how to catch them doing something right. Let them know about it. Let them know that you're there, that you've observed it. And learn how to positively discipline your employees. It is an art, and with practice, supervisors can learn it. All right, let's go on to our scenario with this one, our situation here. One of your employees is always a little bit late completing his or her assigned tasks. So they get it done. So it hasn't affected the work, but it annoys others that they're working with. What would you do? Would you schedule a formal performance review meeting with the employee and document it? Would you tell others in your work group to work around it? It's only a minor problem, just adjust to it. Or would you have a short, informal meeting in which you tell this employee about the impact of the problem and discuss solutions with them? Let's take our poll right now if we could, please. All right, again, they're not getting their work done on time. There's another scenario in here that I absolutely love, and I hear this all the time from my employees or from my supervisors. What do you do with that person who complains all the time? What do the supervisors do? What should they do? What do you think people expect them to do? All right. I have a lot of people voting in on this one. Again, very clear what the answer is. Okay, Sarah, if you want to take it over and show us the results, please. All right, 91% of you said have a short, informal meeting to discuss the problem. Schedule a performance meeting, a formal one, 8%, and only one of you says, work around it, it's only a minor problem. Let's see what the best answer is in this case. All right, in this case, it is C. Have a short, informal meeting in which you tell the employee about the impact of the problem and discuss some of the solutions there. And that is important because we need to coach more. We need to coach more than do a formal performance review. I think coaching is a big part of a supervisor's role, coaching people to get to the point where they need to be. And by using C, the short, informal meeting, you help employees gain awareness of their actions. B is really a demotivator, maybe not to the person who is not performing, but just think of how the other people feel. They're getting the paycheck just the same as the other person is, but yet they have to work around it and do the job. Not fair at all. It's pretty soon you get people who say, you know what, if he doesn't have to do it or she doesn't have to do it, then why should I? And the last one, the A is, it's okay. You got a point for that one. But I think in this case, and again, every case is different, but in this case here, it may be a little bit excessive to have that formal documentation. But again, it depends on specifically what the action is or what the instance is. All right, let's look on in managing performance some do's and don'ts that we have here. In managing performance, you want to track the performance of employees and help them meet their own objectives and those of the organization. A couple things to keep in mind here. One is when employees are developing their own objectives, they are looking at what is the big picture, where is the organization headed, and how do I fit into that, and they determine what their objectives are. You also have in performance, you have some performance standards that are expectations of all employees. And we have to hold them to those standards. And those standards that your organization has come up with are non-negotiable. So what we would need to do is, first of all, track performance and provide feedback on a continual basis. You want to make sure you take notes of the good, the bad, and the ugly, but you want to make sure it's documented in some form. Every day, take notes. Write it down. Yeah, I know, and I hear from my supervisors, oh, but that takes a lot of time. But those of you in HR know that if I haven't done that, and I have a performer who is constantly not doing their job, if I don't have that documentation, it makes it so difficult to get rid of that employee. And if we have a lot of dead wood in an organization, it sort of is a backup, and you don't get that flow of water. You don't get the stuff done in the organization. The second thing is to judge performance by how it affects the organization. What is the impact on it? And I think sometimes when we're doing that performance review, what we have to remember is that we have to be prepared to talk to the employee. We have to know what the desired performance is. We have to know what his or her current performance is, and we have to identify what that skill gap or the gap in performance is and let them know that it is a gap. The second thing I think you have to remember when you're doing performance evaluations or performance reviews on individuals is it's not your problem, it's their problem, and they created it, and they have to solve that problem. Many times my supervisors, when we do giving performance feedback to people, you will have a supervisor that comes in and says, well, this is where we want you to be, and this is what you're doing, and this is what you're going to have to do to correct it. The employee just sits there, and they shake their head, they nod their head, yes, 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 and we never know if the employee ever got it because they don't ask questions. But I think sometimes supervisors are they're so happy just to get it off their desk and to tell the person, and they're out of their office, that, you know, it's finally finished. Because sometimes it's tough for supervisors to do that. But I think if you do your homework before you do your performance review with them or tell them about their performance gap, you'll be much better. So you want is to document exactly what's going on. Make sure you have documentation. Do they know what's expected? Have they received a copy of their performance standards or what they have to do? Do they know about it? And also, I think when we're sitting down and talking to them, we have to let them know what that is. We have to look at also past practices in the organization. And by past practices, I mean when you look at other people who have done things, be aware of what's happening in your work group. Be aware of other departments and what they do, because employees do not forget. There are no secrets in the organization. People know exactly what has happened, and if you go in and you maybe talk about people not coming in on time, they will say, well, you know, John let Mary do that and didn't say anything about that. Or they'll say, you know, well, you let her do it. Why are you calling me on it? So you have to know what past practices are so you're prepared, so you're not blindsided when you get in there. And going to blindsiding, sometimes when you do those performance reviews or talk about performance gaps, or if you have a problem with a performer in the organization, what they'll do is throw curveballs at you. And I think what we need to do is anticipate what they're going to say. Like, oh, I didn't do it that many times. So by maybe keeping track of exactly what they did and when they did it and exactly what the behavior is, you'll have that there. Or if they say it didn't bother anybody or I wasn't late, you have that documentation there. So I think that's important. So be prepared with all those curveballs. And what I have my supervisors do is just make a list of everything they've ever heard and write down something they can say in response to it. So for example, I don't see why it's such a big problem for you, Mr. Supervisor or Ms. Supervisor. And a response to that could be, well, Mary, it's not my problem. It really is your problem, and it has to do with your performance. What you need to do is to stay calm. And when you're giving people information about their performance, the emotions sometimes take over. And interestingly enough, when emotions take over, the brain shuts off. And the more you can do ahead of time and have it written down in front of you, the more you can stay on that logical part of your brain. Also in preparation for giving people feedback about their performance, know what the impact of the performance is on them, know what the impact is on the team, and know what the impact is on the organization, and let them know that. And lastly, you need to know what the consequences are, what the consequences of their action. Could it be maybe an informal discussion with them? Could it be a formal reprimand? Could it be a firing? of what that is. So they have to know what that is. Again, the impact and also the consequences. When you're talking to them, remain objective and get commitment from the employees to improve their performance. I think I was telling you, when you talk to the employees, don't tell them what they have to do. Let them make the decision of how they are going to correct the problem. I know I have kids, and if I tell them exactly what they have to do, it probably will not get done. But when they have buy-in, when they make a commitment to doing something, they will go to the ends of the earth to get that done. So it's sort of like you set up the whole scenario. This is what I expect. This is what I see. Here's the gap. What are you going to do about it? And let them tell you, and then monitor that, because then it's their idea and not yours. Although, even before you go in there, you probably have some ideas about how you would like that thing solved. All right, the next thing is the don'ts. Don't review performance only once a year. I think if an employee is not up to performing pretty well by the end of the year, it's the problem, it's the supervisor's problem. They haven't talked to them enough. So make sure that you review their performance weekly, biweekly, monthly, whatever that is. Don't judge employees before you talk to them about their performance. Yes, you can set up exactly what you see. You can do your homework, but you also need to get their perspective as well. And sometimes there may be something that you don't know that's happening in the work group that is causing their problem. Maybe they don't have enough resources. Maybe they don't have enough time. So you need to get some information from them. Don't make hasty judgments. Don't allow yourself to become emotional. Remember, when the emotions turn on, the brain turns off. And lastly, don't try to fix every problem, no matter how small. You can't do it all. Some things you have to let other people fix themselves. It's not, sometimes it's not your responsibility, it's not your problem. Remember, it's their problem if they're not performing up to standards. All right, so if you scored low in this particular area, managing performance, there are some things you can do. And when my supervisors score low, there's a lot of other side things that I do with them. I teach them about communication skills and how to communicate. I teach them how to collaborate. I teach them how to do conflict resolution. I teach them negotiation skills. So there's a lot of sub-skills that are in managing performance. But basically what you can do is perform these steps on an ongoing basis with your employees. Tell people what you expect of them, monitor their progress, give them feedback, and evaluate their performance. Everybody wants to know how well they're doing or how they're doing in their job. Second, provide suggested actions to improve employee performance. You can make suggestions, but I really encourage you to ask employees, what can you do to make it better? So they're starting to think, so they're not relying on you for everything. Next, address performance problems as soon as they occur. Next, learn to distinguish between problems that need formal attention and those that don't. And lastly, confront behind-the-scene problems when they affect performance. These behind-the-scene problems are sort of the informal organization that exists. You have the formal organization that you work within. There's also some informal things. There's informal leaders. It could be people talking behind people's back, all these little people problems that we have. And when you're looking at in organizations and you think about yourself, your role in your organization, most of the problems that you have in your organization is probably not the technical part. It's about people. And I think we spend 80% of our time managing those people and those non-performers. All right, let's go now on to the next one, and that is managing relations in the organization. And I think this is probably, to me, it's the bow that ties everything up. We get the work done through the people by guiding the work, by organizing work, developing our staff, managing performance, but we do it all. We tie this thing all together by managing relations. And this is relations between your work team, it's relationships between departments, it's relationships between everyone. It is your job as a supervisor to make sure that everybody plays nice. I'm sure you heard about do not pee in the sandbox. Make sure that they don't, that everybody is nice to each other, between the team, between departments. Always focusing on, are we achieving the goals of the organization? And to achieve the goals, you need teamwork. If you look at Lencioni's work, he talks about trust, trust being number one. It becomes because of communication, because of building relationships. It comes with communication, and it comes with collaboration. All right, let's look at now our situation when it comes to managing relations. Situation here is you've been blindsided quite a few times recently by changes in the organization. You didn't know about them, but other supervisors knew about them. Now your group's starting to get upset. Well, and they don't think that you don't know. They probably think that you do know, and you're just not telling them. What would you do? Would you, A, ask your boss to keep you better informed about what's happening? B, make an effort to get to know other supervisors and talk to them about what's happening? Or C, you'll never know everything. Teach your people how to react quickly to unexpected things. All right, let's take our poll right now and see what you come up with. Again, you are blindsided. What do you do? All right, interesting one on this one. We got some, answers are pretty well even there between two of them. Very interesting. All right, we've got most of our voting in. Let's close the poll and see what we came up with. 44% of you says ask the boss to keep you better informed about what's happening. 40% of you say get to know other supervisors. Talk about what's happening. And the last one is teach your people how to react quickly to unexpected things. The chosen answer here, based on the experts that we spoke to, is B. Make every effort to get to know other supervisors and talk to them about what's happening. This is those informal relationships, relationships that you want to form. And it was interesting, I was listening, I think it was channel NBC this morning, the Today Show, and Ivanka Trump was on there. And she said the secret to her dad's success was those relationships that he formed with people. Sometimes other people had information, but the relationships are what gave him the competitive advantage. And that's why this one, I think, was given 2 of the points there. It's about relationships. A was given 1 point. Yes, all the information does come from your boss, but don't forget about those informal networks that are in there, relationships that you can form. And C was given no points. Again, there is a steady flow of information is important. We just can't ignore it. We need that. So B is the correct answer, or the best answer there, although A is also a good answer. Your boss does need to keep you informed, but don't forget about those relationships. But why? Because other supervisors are a great source of information and a great source of support. All right, let's look at some do's and don'ts for this one. All right, some do's. We want to make sure, again, the relationships are the thing that ties everything together. Keep other groups informed about your plans. Don't just expect everybody to tell you, but tell other people. Consider other requests based on a need of the organization, again, focusing on the big picture. Become familiar with other groups' work. Develop relationships with other supervisors. Have meetings with them. Get them all together. Let them know make sure you share with each other what's going on. Don't try to acquire resources by complaining about your group situation. All right. Don't try to have complete knowledge of the other group's work. Don't turn down requests for help that are inconvenient to your group, and don't accept work from other groups without questions. Always ask. Remember about that negativity. If you are negative, people aren't going to want to be around you. Keep it on the positive, keep it on the up, and make sure you share as much information as possible with that other group, with any other group in the organization. All right, let's look now at some areas for how you improve your skills if you are low on this one. View other work groups and other people in the organization as partners. Acquire resources by framing requests according to what is good for the organization rather than how does it benefit me? How does it benefit the big organization? Know how and when to ask for support from other work groups. Respond to requests from other work groups by understanding the organization's goal, and network with other supervisors and help them share information, yours, and then share their information as well. All right. In review then, if you look at, we're going to go to the last thing here, and to look at the 5 supervisory skills. Again, when you look at this and you put this all together, you are taking direction from the supervisor, from the organization. What is the vision, the mission, the strategic direction of the organization? What are their goals? You, the supervisor, are the one that is responsible for making it become a reality, putting life to it, putting meat on the bones by guiding the work, organizing the work, developing your staff, managing performance, and managing relationships of the relationships of your work group and also of the people in the organization. All right, great. I think we have come to the end of the formal part of the presentation. Now, if you can submit some of your questions right now, I see we do have a little bit of time left before we close today. So if you can submit your questions, and I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Great. Thank you so much, Annette. You have the chat box there, so go ahead and type in your questions, and as they come in, I'll go ahead and ask those for Annette. Any that we don't get to today, Annette will respond to directly by email, so you will get your questions. Answered in some form or another. Our first question today for you, Annette, is
Yes.
is really based on the assessment. So what level of supervisor is the assessment best suited for?
You know, Sarah and the rest of the group here, I have used this assessment with every level of supervisors because there's something that you can learn from that. And I think as a trainer, and those of you who are trainers, you can go in there, and after they do the assessment, you can look at some sub-skills that they need, where their performance gap is, whether it's communication, conflict resolution, negotiation, understanding different people's styles. There's always something that they could learn. And I like even to put maybe a mixed group of supervisors in my sessions because my new supervisors learn so much from my seasoned veterans. And the seasoned veterans can attest to the fact about how these skill sets are just so important in developing them in their careers.
Great. And to piggyback on that, we have a question coming in on selection. So could the assessment be used as a selection device? Is it intended for that?
No, never intended for that at all. This is merely to look at the skill sets that make up great supervision. So I'd never use it as to select anybody in the organization. It's used to develop your supervisors once they are put in that position. But I've also, talking about what level you can use, I've also used this with some team leads as we're developing them in talent management in the organization.
Okay, great. Now we have the last scenario actually has created some amazing discussion. We have a lot of questions coming in on the last scenario, but I'm going to kind of generalize some of their responses that are coming in. In a training session, or even in this situation here, what do you do if someone disagrees with the best answer? How do you handle that?
Now, I think this has come up probably in every one of my sessions when I do this, that they don't agree with it. There may be some circumstances we don't know about what's happening in a particular one or how they particularly read it. But I think this disagreement, it just opens dialogue up to such a rich discussion of why they think the way they think, and gets them to share some of their ideas with other supervisors. I'd be interested into knowing what are some of the responses you get on this last one, Sarah.
I will, and I will share those with you so that you can actually respond specifically, because there's a lot of detail, and people are great. They're really giving me their personal feedback as to why they don't necessarily agree with that best answer.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the rationale here by the researchers. I'm sorry. The rationale here by the researchers was that 2 is the best answer. 1 is fine, but 2 is the best because it enables you to build relationships with other supervisors. And that's why that was given the most points.
Good. So we will respond to those, everybody who's sending that in on that last scenario in particular. We have a great question that's come in here from Marianne. How do you approach your own manager about using these skills with you?
So, Marianne, are you saying that if you're a supervisor and you need to be developed, okay. What I would do at the end of all my training sessions, and definitely in this one, we have an opportunity to do an individual development plan. That's why I think coaching is so important. You can use your manager as a mentor, but then maybe the trainer as your coach. But if you have this individual development plan, what you're doing is looking at each one of these skill areas and seeing where your performance gap is, and developing ways to reduce that gap. So, for example, as I said, when you are managing performance, there's a lot of skills that are sub-skills that you need in order to manage that performance. You may need communication skills, conflict resolution, negotiation skills, collaboration, and by developing that, you may want to go to your boss and let them know that, based on experts and what is needed to be a great supervisor, these are some areas that you need in order to develop, and ask him or her maybe for some feedback for you, and then maybe to ask them to mentor you in that process, but have your trainer coach you along in getting you where you need to be.
Great. Virginia here has submitted a question on turnover. So how would you handle a supervisor who has a record of high turnover?
If a supervisor has high turnover in group, to me that's a red flag that goes up, that something's not right. People do not leave an organization. People quit their supervisor. There has been something, there's probably something going on there, and it may be beneficial for you to find out exactly where that gap is. And I think in that case, you may want to use not only the assessment with the supervisor, but also give the assessment to their employees, because they get to rate their supervisor on how they deal with these different situations. And sometimes it's eye-opening for that supervisor when they find out what their employees, how they view them, what their perception is, and where they think they need to be developed.
The last question here that we have time for is from Valerie, and it's specifically about one of the dimensions, so about guiding the work. And her question is, what if your organization does not have clear goals or goals that are communicated? How can a supervisor then properly guide the work?
Well, I think it's the supervisor's responsibility to find out what they are. I think they owe it to their employees to go to upper management, maybe work with the trainer in getting that information as to where are we going, what are our goals, what are our, how will employees know how to get there if they don't know where they're going? I mean, go back to Alice in Wonderland, the Cheshire Cat, like Alice says, well, where are you going? And I mean, well, how do I get there? And the Cheshire Cat says, well, where are you going? And Alice says, well, I don't know. And really, what does it matter you do? So it's important for the supervisors and the employees to know where the organization is going, so they know how to structure their work. They need to know what they need to get done. They need to know what resources they need, not only physical resources, but also maybe skill sets they have to develop. So I would constantly push and try to find out what that is. Ask questions.
Wonderful.
And don't give up.
Thank you.
Don't give up.
Thank you so much, Annette. If we did not get to answer your questions, you will receive an emailed response directly from Annette. So you will hear back from us this afternoon. And so feel free to continue sending in your questions or email us directly with any further questions that you might have. We do have an exclusive offer for you today. You can get 25% off any of the Supervisory Skills Questionnaire product at our website, HRDQ.com. You do want to use the coupon code SSQWebcast. It's all uppercase with no spaces. And we do appreciate your time today, and we hope you found today's webcast very informative. Thank you.